Somehow, despite all that is happening, the JUCO route is still super underrated. For athletes trying to play at the next level, there are so many opportunities, and I feel like JUCO is still neglected, and there are still athletes who in their senior years are still set on D1, even though coaches have made it clear to them like this is not you right now. And so today's guest is someone who's really revitalized a powerhouse at the JUCO level and is someone who's walked the path himself. Which James Hattenstein is the head baseball coach at Bishop State, where he's not only turned the program around, but also helped guys like Gage Miller move on to D1 and to the MLB. And while he's a baseball guy, this is one of those episodes where athletes, regardless of what sport you play, if you want to play at the next level, you should really lean in on this. And so yeah, Coach James, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's just start off. Like, I want the listeners to kind of hear, for those who haven't heard of Bishop State and just some of the journey. You took over in 2017 and the program was really struggling. Like, I think you just mentioned hadn't had a winning season in what, 50, 40 years, something like that.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was 19 last someone told me they had a winning season.
Yeah. And then fast forward that to just this past season, it was, I think I saw 35 wins and then nationally ranked. That required buy-in from a lot of guys when you were a below 500 team.
Yes,
So
sir.
so what are some of those key components of a winning program that both coaches can build, but also athletes can seek, even if they don't see the record, show it yet?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the culture that you bring and treating kids right and being honest with them and giving them all a true chance and letting them know that you care about them. I think that's the start. I think that recruiting is everything. It's the lifeblood of our program. And I think when you show that to the kids that you currently have, they create that word of mouth throughout, you know, where they came from. They're like, hey, I love it there. You should come too. And I think that's really what we have seen. We've gotten better every year. In the last 4 years, we've been pretty good. And I really feel like a lot of it is how we treat our current players. And we work hard for them, but we also, we love on them when they're gone and we let them know that we still care about them. And the culture and the type of kids you bring in that really want to see this program grow is, to me, what we have noticed has been the difference maker for us.
Mm. Yeah. So what do you feel like has really helped you take that and be able to bring in these players and translate that into a nationally ranked program?
Well, nothing is ever achieved without hard work. And I feel like, our guys work extremely hard and I can't take a whole, complete credit for it. I feel like it's the type of kids that we get. They love the weight room. They absolutely love each other in the weight room. They encourage each other to get stronger, bigger, faster. The academics have been there, which is giving us opportunity to move kids on to those Division I schools that we're trying to shoot them towards. Practicing and being consistent. Baseball's about being consistent. Somebody that you can depend on when you put out on the field. Not always your most talented guy that wins baseball games. Oftentimes it's, I know what I'm going to get when I put this guy in this position in the lineup, and he does it for me day in, day out. So I can make adjustments based on what I know he's capable of doing consistently.
Yeah. I think that really speaks to, I think that's important for athletes to hear too, because this is when you think about being recruited, like think about how you can be that person. And, like, I'd like you to speak to, I was gonna do this later, but I think this is a really good time. When you have guys like Gage Miller, you have all these other guys who have been able to go from, under recruited to being a D1 and even getting drafted. What's it like coaching somebody like that, and how can athletes learn from that?
Well, I think in some ways that's what we do it for, is to see that kid who in some way hasn't been given the opportunities that they deserve. And that's really what junior college is about, taking a guy that you see something in them that maybe others don't see in them, and you're able to help them and guide them along. And as we talk about it, we're not blowing the sail on the boat. We're guiding the boat. And so our goal is to try to teach them how to help themselves. I mean, like I said, I can't take credit for Gage Miller. Gage Miller had the talent. He was a guy that was going to get an opportunity. But I will say that he came down, he bought into what we were doing, and we didn't mess him up. That's important too, is, sometimes as young coaches, and I remember myself when I was a young coach, we're constantly trying to put our stamp on someone and change who they are and to make them someone that maybe they're not quite able to do. Gage had his own specific style of doing things, and we just encouraged him to try to build upon that. And as I said, baseball to me is the mentality that you have to get yourself to that next level. And junior college baseball to me is the perfect route for a kid that has the aspirations to get better because he's going to play a ton of baseball games, especially if you're playing down in Mobile, Alabama, where we have pretty decent weather and, we don't have to deal with snow a whole lot. So we get a chance to play a lot of baseball games.
So, what would you say? I think about, again, guys like Gage Miller who clearly had the, like you said, have the talent, have that potential, and I look at guys like I've seen a lot of guys who, whether it be from injury or from what I call the ignorance tax, is just not knowing any better. Like, how does JUCO really? How can that unlock that potential for those athletes who, maybe have that D1 potential or have that draft potential? Like, what do you feel like is really that shift there?
The weight room and the mentality. We fixed our own fields. We make sure that, we do the little things that oftentimes when you get to the higher levels, you don't have to do. And I think the accountability would be the biggest word that we use with our guys is you hold yourself accountable, but you also find a way to be accountability partner for one of your teammates. We use that word mudita because we want to see someone else succeed just as well as yourself. And I think oftentimes that matriculates itself into helping guys find their way and to be realistic with your teammate and to say, hey man, you've missed that rep or you should have gotten up this morning and gone to class. It resonates with kids to have a 18-year-old say it to them instead of an old guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's accountability is huge because I mean, a lot of these athletes, yes, they want the scholarships and they want the things, but they also want to win championships. They want to have those things, and you can't build a championship with one player. So
Yeah.
that
And
that team thing is
you
huge.
hear football coaches say this all the time. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And
Mm.
I'll say this to my guys, the guys that aren't playing, the guys that are waiting their turn, man, they're the biggest and best, opportunity for the program to win because if they're just a stump on a log and they're not encouraging and not making comments to the guys that are on the field, it's pretty hard to watch a baseball game that boring if the guys just not doing anything.
Well, and it's also because I mean, you never know when your opportunity will open up either. Because like I had Nick Marrero on the podcast. This was a few months ago, and he was a JUCO guy, played for Chipola, and he actually helped them win the state championship without even playing. Like he was
That's
able to scout out the pitchers a little bit and
facts.
figure out the signs
Huge.
and the whole. Yeah.
Charting, you'll have 6 or 8 guys doing charts, one guy helping the other guy. Them is it's huge. Just finding, different things to help the team win. And that's really what it is. If you can teach your team to find a way to support each other, whether you're on the field or off the field. And when your opportunity comes, you have to be ready. We had that conversation with our guys on day one. Everybody will get a chance at Bishop State. Everybody will get a chance, but the window is short. It's not going to be one of those things where you get you out there and you keep you out there. If you don't do it, somebody else will take your spot. Last year, we ended the season, the last month of the season, we still won baseball games, but we had 6 guys injured at the end of the season. And so
Oof.
we had some guys step in and take over some roles that they hadn't had quite as many at bats or many ground balls, but they did an excellent job of taking over and finding themselves and knowing their role.
Well, and I think that's where, again, a lot of these athletes, they're not going to get that opportunity necessarily at a 4-year school where, especially a D1, where a lot of them end up riding the bench at a 4-year versus, JUCO. So can you speak to even that piece of it?
Well, the cool part about junior college baseball that a lot of people don't realize is we have 14 dates that we can play in the fall, and they do not count against your record. So
Mm.
I can mix and match whatever lineup that I want throughout the course of the fall. And being in Alabama, we have pretty good weather, and we get an opportunity to play 14 dates in the fall and 56 games in the spring. So when you go to play junior college baseball at Mobile, Alabama, you're going to get an opportunity to be on the field at some point. The kids that are coming in that maybe didn't come from a program that taught them some of the things that they don't know yet, they get to watch it from the dugout. And I'll tell you, I was the guy that played at South Alabama. I was the guy that learned more in the dugout than I did on the field. And I think that's something that kids have to understand is just hearing the coaches making comments to guys when they come in, hey, This is what you should have done in this count. This is what he's telling you. These are things that we want you to look for. I think that's important. So when you get that opportunity, a lot of the mental side of the game has already been prepared because you've heard some of the conversations with the guys who's made mistakes, who have maybe done some things that you learned something from them. And I think the extra games and the opportunities, play a huge role, especially in kids like Gage Miller that, in Pennsylvania where he's from, they don't play as many games as we do. And so when he came to Mobile, I think the biggest thing he would say is the opportunity to play on a daily basis and to be able to put in those things that we teach and the things that he worked on into a game setting is humongous.
When you talk about guys like Gage Miller, you talk about some of these guys, like I even think about it as, you think of like a piece of art, you think of whether it be a painting, like one on my wall or a sculpture, something like that, where, finishing high school, you have like the outlines, you have some of the detail, or you have maybe some of the details, but not a lot. Like if you go straight to D1 with that raw material, with that very faint outline, it's going to be much harder than if you go to JUCO and you fine tune and you kind of fill in all those details, and you're going to be much more defined going into that 4 year basically afterwards. So I think it's just a huge opportunity to grow there.
Yeah, I agree. Think, especially in Mobile, there's a lot of talent in this area, and we see it quite often as kids will choose to go somewhere because, man, if you get a chance to go to a high level power four or power five, whatever they're calling it this week, if you get that opportunity, you really can't turn it down. You want to be at the highest level, and if you're a competitor, you want to compete at the highest level. But I think you have to have that support group around you that's realistic, that gives you what's going on at this level. I tell high school coaches all the time, please don't call me and tell me about a kid that's not able to play at my level. If you've never seen the level of play, then you really don't know what level junior college is today. And when I played Division I baseball, I think a lot of the talent level, not at every team, but I think a lot of the junior colleges now physically match up with some of the teams that we had. My team last year, the average weight of our guys was 190 pounds. That's pretty physical. And when you look at a lot of high school kids going to a Division I school, they have a lot of nutrition guys. They have the weight programs that are specific for their bodies. And there's very few 23, 24-year-old seniors that are going to be 140 pounds, like a lot of your freshmen coming in at 18 years old. And so the cool thing for us is what we see guys is when they come in tiny and small and that 18 to 19-year-old growth rate, to see them get bigger, stronger is really cool to see when a guy's just kind of subpar physically, but not so much subpar on the baseball field. And I think that's what kids have to understand. Yes, you are a D1, possibly draft pick, but if you're not there yet and you have to sit for a year, where are you going to grow? It's going to make it more difficult.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. And this actually brings me to something too is, there's that D1 or bust mentality that a lot of athletes have. What do you feel like you've already highlighted some of the misunderstandings athletes have? Like what would you say is one of the biggest misunderstandings of the JUCO route?
I think a lot of people think that we're not very talented at our level. I mean, it's depending on what school you play. Obviously, you're going to face collegiate level players. And in today's world, with the landscape of Division I changing their roster sizes, I think it's even going to be more difficult for kids coming out of high school because we're going to have some of those Division I kickbacks, and those kids are going to come in and at the break and maybe take a kid's spot that was already here. So I just encourage kids to really just look out and see what's there. If you're going to sign with a program, watch that team play and see what their roster looks like and see if you match that program because you may not.
Yeah. Something else too that you talk about along the lines that again people don't think about or athletes don't think about is a lot of athletes want that free money. They want the scholarships. And so I think it's unique though, because I think I've seen you talk about this is, the JUCO route and why it can be even better for these athletes who want to get more scholarships at those 4 year schools. Can you talk about that with the GPAs?
Well, I will brag a little bit. We have been recognized 5 times as a 3.0 or better GPA by the ABCA. And, as we look at guys, and I'll use Gage Miller's example again, Gage Miller had a stackable academic scholarship to Alabama that was pretty substantial. And when our guys come in to Bishop, we encourage them to have a 3.5 GPA or better so that they can get that stackable money. And it's pretty good at the majority of the institutions. There's so many opportunities academically that can help your parents support you while you're in college playing baseball, and the academic side is huge. And the reason why I know this is because I wasn't a great student when I was at Bishop, because I played here, and I didn't transfer all those hours that I needed to transfer. And I learned from my mistakes, which I think is a lot of what the kids have to do, is they have to learn from other people's mistakes and try to grow from there. And academically, we really do well in the classroom. And once again, that's not me, but we put that in place. We set that standard, and we encourage those players that if you want to get that money to go to a division, everybody wants to go Division 1. Well, maybe that Division 1's not able to give you the money that the junior college is going to give you. We get 24 scholarships, tuition, books, and fees. Most four-year schools at this point aren't able to do that. There are some Division 1 schools that are going to go into the full scholarship mode soon. But at this point, having the opportunity to have that safety net with your academics is humongous, and it helps. I mean, if you have a player that has a 2.0 GPA and someone at another JUCO has a guy that's a 3.0 GPA, what kid's gonna get that scholarship? You're gonna go with the kid that's more dependable. Once again, going back to that phrase, dependability, consistency, those things are huge, not just on the field, but in the classroom. I don't have to worry about you. I don't have to worry that you're a party or that you're not going to get to class at 8 a.m. the next morning. I want to make sure I have guys that are doing what they're supposed to do.
So I know that like there's a lot of athletes too who they kind of screw up their high school GPA. Like things happen freshman year, just a bad year, whatever it happens, and they screw it up. Doesn't it kind of reset in a way too if you go the JUCO route and it kind of gives you a fresh kind of look in a sense?
Absolutely. Most junior college are open enrollment schools. So literally, you just have to have a GED or a high school diploma on the graduation date. And that helps because, going back to even myself, I wasn't a great student because in my mind, unrealistically, I thought I was going to play in the big leagues. I was not that talented in any way, shape, or form. And obviously, I had to grow. I have 2 master's degrees now, but I will tell you, I was not a very good student in high school, nor was I a very good student in undergrad. So I had to grow from there. And so it's important for guys to understand that you have to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Well, and it's like when you look at those 4-year schools, like you said, a lot of them won't even look at you if you have a certain GPA, or again, like you said, with the scholarships, they're not going to get as many scholarships. But if they go JUCO route and they make up for it, they fix it, then it's like, hey, you got way more opportunities now.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've actually had some kids that had very low ACT scores, very average, academics in high school, and knocked it out of the park here, and they were able to get some pretty substantial scholarships at the four-year schools that they're attending. That's to me what I get joy out of, is seeing kids change their negative ways. We all have to change our negative ways, but, something that they're able to find themselves, to mature, to grow up, and to be the person that their parents raised them to be. Most parents don't want their kids to make bad grades. And, when they come to junior college and they're able to, be on the dean's list, or get NJCA Academic All American, that's a bragging right. A lot of social media posts from parents at Bishop State from their kids doing well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another really good opportunity for these athletes to, like just turn the course the right direction, and so I think it's really cool that the opportunity, and then also to have guys like you who have really support their athletes and get them, across the board. And like it goes back to the standards. It's not like you said, it's not all you, but it's the standards and the culture that you guys set that allows those athletes to thrive a lot more. So I think that's huge.
Well, we find ourselves talking about the same guy over and over again, and there's a reason for that. Most guys are going to go pro in something, and it's probably not going to be baseball. We had 2 guys in the last couple of years sign contracts, but that's not as common as, most kids aren't. Even your best players in some of your power schools are not going to get those opportunities to get drafted. It's just difficult in today's world. They're only drafting 20 rounds. There's not as many teams. So the opportunities then that we had when I came through, I didn't get drafted. I played 2 years independent ball, but the opportunities even that were available at my age, they're not there anymore. So kids have to understand, hey, what's your backup plan? What is your plan if baseball doesn't work out? And you know, unfortunately, I didn't realize that till a later point. And I want to be that guy that I needed when I was their age. I want to be the person that I needed to talk to, and that's my goal. I'm not the best at it. I try to be. As coaches, we fall short a lot of days, just as we do as parents. But we try to do our best to encourage our players to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah. And just to the athlete listeners out there, like also think about this: when you go to a 4-year school as a freshman, you're not going to have the accessibility to a coach like you would at a JUCO. So think about a coach like, James, like you are much, I feel like you're going to be much more available or much accessible than if you go to a 4-year and you're at the bottom of the totem pole and their priority is the guys who are going to be starting. So think about that kind of development too.
I find that one of my goals is to treat my guy who doesn't play as good or better than the guy who starts every day. I think that's important that everybody on my team know that I care about them, whether they're the manager or they're the guy that's getting, looks from every Power Four school out there. That to me is what we do to try to set the culture. We want guys to grow as people. If we make you feel like you're less because you're not as talented as someone else, what are we doing?
No, that's good. That's good. I love that. This is one of the reasons I could tell, like, even though we've only chatted via message, like I could have a sense that you had this real value and care for your athletes on a whole nother level. So I appreciate that for sure. Yeah. One thing I want the athletes to kind of hear about too is, a lot of us hear about that JUCO grind. So you talked about a little bit of like, okay, we've got to take care of the field, the weight room, like some of those things. But what does it actually look like that JUCO grind, and how does it prepare players better than a lot of them realize?
Well, I've always said, if you start at the top, you don't know what it feels like to grow and you don't know what it feels like to have the challenges and you don't appreciate things. I didn't come from money, and I say that in a nice way. I want to see kids understand what it's like to work for something because it feels so good when you get to that top level and you busted your tail and you've earned it instead of somebody just giving it to you. And I think that's what junior college baseball really does for you. I mean, you're going to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're going to get on that bus and you're going to ride that bus all the way to wherever we're going. And when we get out of the dugout, you clean your dugout, you load your bus, you get a pizza or whatever is open at that point on the way home. Hopefully it's good food, but sometimes these restaurants close early now because of COVID that changed the world. You ride that bus all the way back and you develop relationships with people. We had our first team meeting this week and I told our guys the best way to grow as a human being is to talk to someone, build relationships with someone that doesn't look like you. If you're not rich and you're not wealthy, find someone that you can learn from. You can learn from so many different walks of life. Don't set yourself in one little pod and be a clique. And I think when you become a clique, it doesn't build a team and it doesn't build growth. I was from the country. I lived on a dirt road. When I came to Bishop State, there was a lot of things about this world that I did not know, which was not always a bad thing. But I was able to learn from people once again who did not look like me. And I think that's important for a lot of our generation, this young generation, to understand socializing is important. It's important to be able to hold a conversation with someone and to be able to get her head out of her phone and to look people eye to eye and to have a smile on her face and to greet someone with a pleasant nature and to be somebody that your parents will be proud of.
I love that. It's like there's seriously so much to it, like the physical development, the social development, the academic development. Like there's just so many opportunities there, and I love that you're able to speak to all of those and exemplify, like your athletes exemplify a lot of those things. And so yeah, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, holding the
Go ahead.
door and things like that is something we do in the South. We say, yes, ma'am. We do those kind of things. And we try to teach our kids that come from the North. One of the first conversations Gage Miller and I had was When you go to McDonald's and you order food, you say, "Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am." And he did that. And it actually was kind of neat to see a kid that it's kind of weird to do it for someone that's not from there, but it's kind of neat to see a kid assimilate to a little different culture.
Yeah, I think that's unique. I actually have a client down in that I just started working with down in Alabama, and it throws me off like on the very first call when she's like, "Yes, sir, yes, sir." I'm like, "Okay, oh, this is different."
Yeah.
I mean, I get yes, coach. We get a lot of yes coaches up here. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes. It's a challenge. Like I said, is it something that's a necessity in my program? No, you don't have to call me sir. That's not where I'm at. But I feel like the Southern hospitality, being a gentleman, holding a door, greeting someone when you walk in, it speaks volumes with the type of program you have. And for us, we want our players to be a part of the school. We want them to greet people and let them know who they are and to have a positive thought about who they are.
Any last things you want to leave specifically on the JUCO side? I have like a question or two, but on the JUCO side, like any last things you want to leave with the athletes?
I say players that are listening to this in the recruiting world, respond back to everyone, be polite, be honest. If you're not interested in the program, tell them no. If you're interested in the program, give them a timeline. Let them know where you're at. Be honest and always know that coach, I'm not going anywhere. Don't get that in your head, but that coach may be promoted. He may move on to that Division 1 school and he's going to remember you. Also know that when you talk to a junior college coach, guess what? We recruit in and we recruit out. So our conversations with Division 1 coaches are pretty common. It's not uncommon for us to make 2 and 3 and 5 and 10 conversations with a Division 1 coach. So we may have, one conversation about you, and you don't want that junior college coach to say, "Man, that guy was just rude as all get out in the recruiting world." So you want to build that relationship with everybody in the baseball world. And junior college baseball it's a different animal. As I said, you recruit in, you recruit out. Don't sell yourself into a situation where you don't have an opportunity to go somewhere because you're putting yourself above someone. I could, I always say this, I can take my resume and hand it to you and you could take your resume and hand it to me, but that's not putting us on an even playing field. We need to talk to each other as if we have the same resume. And I think that's important for players to understand that just because I'm a junior college coach doesn't mean that I can't help you. And it's the same way with the Division 1 schools. Just because they're Division 1 school doesn't mean they're going to help you. So
Mm.
so be courteous, be polite. Know the recruiting world we're all friends. The relationships in baseball is very tight. So just follow the plan. Don't get caught up in the crazy world of social media that can kind of put you in a pretty bad situation.
Yeah, and I can speak to that as somebody who's like friends on Facebook and Twitter of all these. Like, you see who's all connected and friends and stuff, and I'm like, oh, this person's connected with this person. I'm like, not
Yeah.
surprised. So there's
Yeah.
there's all that interweaving there. So I really appreciate you sharing that part too. I think that's huge for the athletes. But back to you guys at Bishop State though. What do you feel like is next for you guys building this program and really continuing to give guys shots at the next level and maybe a championship?
Well, I think in junior college, and a lot of coaches will say this, recruiting is the lifeblood of our program. So having you put me on your podcast is humongous to let people hear who we are and what our program is about. Recruiting top level arms is huge for Bishop State. We've led the league in ERA and several times, but finding those guys that are just shut down pitchers are huge. And when you get in that conference tournament, you want to win it. And that's our next goal is we want to get in the conference tournament every year and make that a consistent thing as we are doing. But we want to win the dang thing. And we want to have a chance to take our players and do things that Bishop State's never done. And when we sign a guy, that's kind of what we try to sell them on is we've broken just about every record that was here before us. And our goal is to continue to break our own records. And we have. And, breaking a record or getting to that, conference tournament and winning it that's the next goal. And you take every season differently. We have some returners this year. We're very freshman heavy last year, but the rear view mirror is small and the windshield is big. So you have to look forward. You have to think about where we're going to be and not where we've been.
Yeah. I mean, and that speaks to everybody. Everybody needs to remember that one, looking forward, not looking backwards, not looking at the old glory days or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and we all get caught up in that. Hey, I was this, I was that, I was the other. In high school, We tell that to players. In high school, the level of talent is not going to be as big a challenge as the level of talent at junior college level. Junior college baseball is really good. It's really difficult. Every freshman that comes in has some sort of difficulty. It might just be having to clean their own toilet and washing their own clothes that mom did for them. But there's going to be some difficulty there. And hopefully it's something you can get past and you can grow. But it is difficult coming to junior college. It's not easy coming out of high school.
Yeah, yeah. Now, for those who want to uh, go that route or are interested in Bishop State or JUCO in general, who should they go to and who should they like reach out to?
Well, I think Twitter is a huge recruiting tool for us. Inbox us, follow us on Twitter, give us a like when we post something. Give us the reason to look at your videos. Have videos that we can watch. I know you like sharing your friends, but pin a few videos that have you on there. I think
Yeah,
that's important. So when we go in there and we peruse through the social media, that we can see you in the very beginning. That sometimes gets difficult when you go through there and there's 10 guys that you're teammates that you're promoting. We want you to do that. And that shows a lot about you, but we're not recruiting your teammates. We're recruiting you. And so, and we may end up recruiting your teammates as well, but just let us know who you are in social media. Follow us. I have an email and I try to respond, but I will tell you emails, texts, man, college coaches get completely worn out from, there's a lot of average baseball players out there that could help just about any program, but college coaches are not looking for average players. They're looking for elite players. We're all searching for the guys going to take our program to the next level. I will say this, if you're a high school coach or you're a guy that's helping, a kid get to the next level, be mindful of what you're selling to that college. Don't try to sell a guy, a kid that's, undersized and you're saying, hey, if he just had a weight program, he'd be good. I just can't understand why there's not a weight room in that particular town. So just be mindful of what you're selling, because oftentimes we get hundreds of emails, hundreds of calls, and we're looking for elite. We're really not looking for that average player. That we can fill our rosters with average players. It's pretty easy in today's game.
yeah, yeah. I like that. So then Twitter is probably the easiest way to connect with you as well.
Twitter, email, like I said, once we kind of get to Twitter and I see something I like from you, I'll follow you. I may DM you, or you could DM me. And, the biggest thing with recruiting now is the kid will reach out to you and say, I just want an opportunity. And then you give him that opportunity. He's like, well, I just want another opportunity. So that's another thing you have to be careful with as a recruitee is, if you're saying something to somebody, be honest. If I just want an opportunity and you get that opportunity, take that opportunity. If that's not what you want, don't say that. Say what you mean what you say.
Quick note too, I wanted to ask on the Twitter side you were talking about is you mentioned making sure your videos are available. Like you're able to add a link in your profile. I don't know, it might limit what kind of links you use. I know Instagram's an option, but I think there's like you could add YouTube. You could post your stuff on YouTube or like whatever wherever you post your videos. But like, do you think like if you saw a link right there at the top of their profile?
I think there's a lot of things that are missing on some kids' Twitter. What high school you go to, what college you're coming from, your cell phone number or an email address, or some way of knowing what position you play. There's several things that you could put at the top. If you have a nickname, we don't want you going by your nickname in your Twitter without giving us your name, because
Yeah,
I'm going to in turn, if I see a video on you, I'm going to in turn pull you up on the web and just see if there's anything else out there, of some links of you playing, or maybe some stats of where you played in a tournament, or something that gives me more information about you. The biggest thing I get too is I'll link up with a kid and I'll give him my cell number and he'll text me back and say, hey, this is Jimmy. Jimmy who? So it's important that when you communicate with coaches that that they really have a lot of names to juggle. And if you're specific with who you are and where you communicated with that coach. Hey, I saw you at a showcase in Birmingham. I saw you at Hoover, coach. We talked about XYZ. Put that in that coach's head so they could remember you. They can put your face with who they're talking with. And you'd be surprised at how many kids I follow that just made the effort to come up and speak to me. Don't be shy. It's your opportunity. If you want an opportunity, go get it. If you don't want an opportunity, sit back and wait for somebody else to get it. If you don't want it, don't go for it. If you want it, go speak to someone. If you want to go to Bishop, introduce yourself to me. Let me know who you are. And then follow me on Twitter. Let me know some things about you. That's the way you get recruited.
yeah, yeah. So huge. Hey, thank you so much Coach, for taking the time today. There was seriously so much good stuff, and I really hope the athletes, whether you're a baseball athlete or not, like that you really took notice of a lot of these things, because this is consistent regardless of what sport you play. So thanks again for hopping on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And for listeners, if you want to see or follow Coach, like check in the show notes. Hey, maybe you message him and say, "Hey, I heard you on the podcast, on the Student Athlete Performance podcast," and that can be your way to start that conversation. But
Especially
yeah,
if you're a
again,
90 arm. If you're a 90 arm, let's talk. And you throw strikes.
yes, yes, awesome, sweet. Well, yeah, thanks again. And then for the athletes listening, as always, keep striving for greatness.